28 years later, The Bone Temple is an absolutely astounding film. It is one of the best films I have seen come out in January recently. There has been some absolute bangers over the last couple of years, but this has really taken the biscuit as the number one spot. I thoroughly enjoyed this film from start to finish. It was an amazing, well, I was going to say sequel to the previous. However, this is basically the second film in the new revived trilogy. We haven't had the third film yet, but it is actually the fourth film in the total installment of the 28 series, I guess, because we have days, weeks, and now years. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people do disregard weeks and everyone sort of loves days. And now we have 28 years later that came out last year, which was just a phenomenal film. Again, I mean, I'm not going to go into that in this review, but it had a very different way about it compared to this film. You know, I feel like it very much focused on where the situation was, you know, with the zombies, with the country, how people living, you know, it showed different aspects and different people's environments, you know, and how they survived, where this film felt a lot more individual. You know, it did have the aspect of showing different groups, as we know, but it really felt more of like an individual storyline development. You know, we spent a lot of time with Dr. Ian Kellyman, for example, and Spike and Samson, and really seeing how those characters developed. But yeah, just before I sort of delve into it, I just want to say I personally have given this like a 9.5, bordering on a 10. I absolutely just loved it. I don't know if it was because I was in a great mood and the popcorn I had was amazing, but I just had such a good time at the theatre. And this is a sort of film that I recommend to people to go and feel a bit more inspired by. If they need something that's out there right now, you just had Marty's Supreme Drop. If you're looking for something a little bit, it feels a little bit more sort of independent, not a superhero-y, a massive franchise, I'd go and give this a real go, because it feels very grounded in the way that it tells its story as well. It makes it very, very real. And as a British person, it's really well deep-rooted in British sort of pop culture, if you like, and not for all good reasons. Of course, we know the main characters are Jimmys, and the main character is Sir Jimmy. However, that is clearly modelled off of a British disgraced icon and paedophile, Jimmy Savile, from the sort of 80s, 90s, 2000s until he passed away, and all this horrendous stuff came out about him. Now, you can sort of tell that Jack O'Connell plays an absolute evil character. From the second we see him, we know that there's something wrong about him, until we get to the scene where we start seeing him skinning people alive, and you really get this feeling in your throat, in the back of your head, like, oh, okay, he is gonna die, and I can't wait for it to happen, and I can't wait to see it happen, and it needs to be as satisfying as I want it to be, or as I'm picturing in my head, right? Because he is truly awful. Now, this is a masterful performance from Jack O'Connell, and it is from the entire cast. I really do mean that. Ralph Fiennes, I genuinely think this is the best performance of his career. You know, one of my friend's girlfriend, who is a huge film fan as well, would say that he's been great in loads of other things, which is totally accurate. But for me, this was genuinely one of his best ever performances. It felt so real and true and grounded, and you just love the character. You want to spend more time with them. You want to see what else they're doing, and everything that he did in this film. I don't want to go into extreme detail here and talk about all of the spoilers, so just a quick brief spoiler warning. But Dr. Ian McKellen in the first film is obviously, before you get to meet him, is looked at as this very scary person that's doing a really wrong thing. You know, there's bones, there's skulls, he must be a murderer, but he's not actually. He's memento memore, I think it said. So, you know, we must all die, or something along those lines is what it means. He really respected the dead and the circle of life, but what he wanted to do was leave an imprint on the world that he sort of was leaving. You know, he mentions in that film he doesn't even remember what it was like to go to the shop. He is so consumed in everything that has been the last 28 years of his life that he can't see outside of that anymore. He only knows his day to day. And in the first film, you don't see it as much, but you do get a real sense of his humanity for the zombies or the undead. And in this one, we really see that develop with his relationship with Samson. He genuinely takes him on as a sort of godparent, father-like figure, you know, because he trusts him and he wants to show Samson that there is trust there and he's not there as a threat. You know, there's a couple of sort of things at the beginning of this film which I clocked onto straight away. We see a particular scene from a zombie, from the zombie's perspective of looking at a human, and the human looked like the zombie to him, you know? So, and you see Dr. Ian McKellen sort of work that out later in the film, that actually this is probably a state of psychosis, because they must feel a threat, because why would they be ripping babies' heads off? And it's very gory and extreme, but actually a very, very good point. And I think that's a really interesting sort of lane that they end up going down. And I must just say, the train scene came out of nowhere and was just phenomenal. There was sort of, when we got scenes of Samson, walking around by himself, every now and then there'd be a train noise, but you sort of never knew where it was leading to. And that build up of him looking around and seeing people on the train and saying out loud, I don't have a ticket. And then all of the sort of zombies realizing that he is talking and that isn't possible for us. So are they more conscientious? Do they know what's going on? It's obviously not about smell and what they look like. It's more about, is it about talking? Like, there's so much more I want to know about this, right? It's really, really intriguing. So I've got a couple of notes on my phone. I was going to make a cut, but I feel like I'm on a good roll here now and I don't sort of want to stop. I just really obviously want to touch on the actors' performances. Obviously, we've mentioned Ralph Fiennes as an absolute obvious of someone who's been in lots of films and played many, many amazing roles. However, I really want to give a shout out to the actor who played Spike, because I genuinely think that is one of the best young person performances. He's 15 in real life now, so there's a good chance when they shot this back to back, he was around sort of 12, 13. It's absolutely incredible. He was brilliant and captivating. One part of his character sort of arc that I really appreciated is how the whole time, at the beginning anyway, you can tell that he doesn't want to be there. And throughout the whole thing, you can tell he doesn't want to be there. But at the beginning, I remember watching it thinking, this is going to turn where he's going to want to be there, or something's going to happen that's going to make him have to kill someone he doesn't want to. And that will just turn him. And even though this Jimmy's going to die, Spike will be that one to take that through. And whilst that would have been made sense, I actually like it when they keep a character a bit grounded and true and what you fell in love with in that first film. And Spike's arc's absolutely amazing, and how it ends, I must just quickly touch on Cillian Murphy's part, was just fantastic. It just put such a huge smile on my face, because a sort of hesitation but then realization of course we're going to help them. That just felt very true to the character. And that's where I think the third film is going to take us. I think it's going to take us back to the Bone Temple. I think it's going to take us back to the research that Kellyman was working on. I think we're going to see Samson again, of course. And I think there obviously needs to be some sort of existential threat here, or potentially new groups, but that's potentially going to be the storyline, is how do we get that information that Kellyman figured out to outside of the UK, to the rest of the world, so that they know that there's a cure and potentially Britain can be cured. We can bring this back and life can be back to what we knew it as. Where's the stumbling block there? I don't know, and I can't wait to find out. And we've been spoiled in 1 year getting 2 films. Shooting back to back was great. I do just think as well, from DaCosta, this is an absolute directing masterclass. Like, she was amazing throughout this, and all of the actors and actresses have spoke very highly of her, as of course they would have Danny Boyle, but they were two different films and totally different. And I just feel like people are trying to compare them, but they're actually just two sides of the same coin. And of course, in the modern day, everyone tries to compare, but I love them both for different reasons entirely. And I want to see more of the first one and more of the second one, if that makes sense, more of those styles, 100%. But what DaCosta brings in this, is, really inspiring performances, true character depth. We really get to the nitty gritty of who these people actually are deep down. There's really good conversations in here. There's really good latching, what I would say, latching onto what people are vulnerable or giving vulnerabilities across. When Sir Jimmy mentions his dad being the devil and doing this and that, and then that comes back to bite him slightly later when, Satan, who obviously Kellyman is playing at that point, says in front of all of his followers, you need to be crucified, because he sees that pain in Spike's eyes. And, that just turns the tables for everything. It makes all the vulnerabilities you've previously learned actually come back against him, which is such a good feeling, I just really think this is an amazing film. If you haven't seen it yet, really do, please go and watch the first one. Watch 28 Days Later. Skip the weeks, watch 28 Years Later, and then watch The Bone Temple. You will not be disappointed, especially if you're a lover of horror, if you're a lover of sort of British horror films. I love Shaun of the Dead, not as dark and serious and real as this, but it always gives me that sort of feeling with it. And I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And as a Brit, there's so many British jokes in it and British mentions and things. And whilst there's a horrific scene when they're being skinned, the NHS joke is brilliant and it's a great line. And I'd love to know what our American counterparts thought about that. But for me, that's a really, really great line. Whereas you have other parts of it where I think was a little bit more vital to understand, like the Sir Jimmy the way he looks, the way he dresses, the way he acts. I think went over a few people's heads, but not everyone's. And there are plenty of those throughout that I just thoroughly enjoyed. And Kellen's humour, his wit. He's very British. He plays a very stereotypical British doctor person in this that just talks in facts, but isn't too emotional in the way he speaks, unless it's about something that he truly cares about. And yeah, I was very, very motivated by this. I really made me want to go out and sort of shoot and create. And I thought, wow, the story from these two films, shot on iPhone. There's been so much around these two films now. It's just been brilliant. So yeah, seriously do recommend. Can't wait to go and see the next one whenever it comes out. Really looking forward to Cillian Murphy being the lead. Spike back in it. Hopefully we get Aaron Taylor-Johnson come back and we learn a little bit more about the sort of island offshore. I think that was really cool as well. And yeah, that's my review for The Bone Temple. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. We're starting high this year. These are going to come out regularly, by the way, guys. I'm going to be doing it on TV shows, on films, on all sorts, and maybe a little podcast where me and my friends talk for a little bit about some films or things that are coming up. We might discuss some trailers. Not everything might be sat down like this. Some things might be a little bit more webcam and chill. If you like it and you want to stick around, please do subscribe, like, comment. Anything you can do to help me gain more traction and for people to come back, basically. Because I love creating these and I love talking about films. So yeah, let's get a conversation going. Please let me know what you think. It's nothing you can say is wrong. It's great to have a conversation. It's great to have an opinion. And I just want to talk about films with everyone. So yeah, you have to let me know down below. But for now, I'll love and leave you, and I'll speak to you next time.